my son has all the proper names for everything, but I just say, okay, when I touch the big black thing, and then the bar, and then the button, what happens? So we're all just fine on that.
So we raise our hand if we want to talk, is that it?
No, that's only in the mornings when I teach. Give me one half a second. I'm just confirming one thing here, and then I'm right there.
Perfect. I'm going to take this opportunity while you're doing that, Jay, to introduce everyone to everyone, because we haven't all met. So I'm Kelly Tieford. I'm producing In Their Footsteps and our online launch event, including the discussion panels. I've spoken to all of you somehow, though this is the first time that I'm seeing some of your faces, so that's nice.
I've seen you a couple times.
Yeah, Bob and I have worked together. So Jay Michaels is our public relations officer, and he's helping us with marketing, and so that's why we're meeting today to do a little promo video, which we'll share over the weekend to try to drum up some more interest in the event next week.
Great. Why you're away, so I'm not disturbing you.
Yeah, and Bob and Jean and Anne all served in Vietnam in some capacity, and Kieu Chinh is from Vietnam, though currently living in California, and is an actress who has done some incredible, prolific work over the decades. That's who we all are, and I'll let Jay lead this, because this is his thing. I just wanted to update everyone on who everyone was. Does anyone have questions for me before I turn it over to Jay?
We're all going to have the right answers, right?
Of course.
Oh, good.
Oh, of course. If you say anything you want edited out later, it can be done.
No, it cannot. No, it cannot.
I'll do it. No, it cannot?
No, there is no editing. It's good. Actually, I would like to put it up live right afterwards. I'd like to do it, finish the recording, and put it right up. This way you have plenty of time before the event next week for people to see it. Basically, what we have for this is we are all but live. This is Zoom, so to try to edit is let's just say I'm happy I could turn on Zoom. So, but I'm not going to ask any hard-hitting anything. This is all essentially just very cool chatting about the play, about what you have seen in terms of it, how you feel about a play being done, about your lives in some cases, and the things that you have witnessed, and just in general, just basically artistic stuff, really easy. And Christy, in answer to your question, it's Jean Christie, right? It's Jean.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'll have to remember that. You're like my students. I have to look at the last name and then the first name.
It's easier if you just say Sam.
Sam, even better. I'll let everybody introduce each other as but in answer to your question, everything is the right answer, because I'm going to say, how do you feel about it? And so of course that would be the right answer with it. Whatever you have to say. Is there anything you don't want me to talk about? Anything you want me to shy away from?
How do I turn this up a little louder?
Good question.
Are you on a computer or an iPad or?
Laptop.
There should be a volume button.
Toward the bottom, probably as you scroll on the bottom, you'll see something.
So you can do it via your laptop. You can just turn the volume up on your laptop, or if you see the little microphone button that says mute at the bottom, there's an up arrow next to that. If you click that, you should see audio settings, and you can turn up and down speaker.
So on the output or the input?
If you want to turn up our voices, you can turn up the output.
Okay.
Or if you're an old guy, you can
Much
listen
better.
through your hearing aids.
No, that works. Thank you.
That works very well.
And if you think these are for fashion, no, you're wrong. Now I can. So you're absolutely right. thank you all for being my contemporaries, by the way. Normally when I'll mark, does anyone remember the Twilight Zone? And everyone goes, no. So it's just a pleasure to have my contemporaries in the room. Real easy, real light. Like I said, we're going to talk about the play. We're going to talk about experiences. You are all panelists, yes? You're all going to be panelists for one of the nights in their footsteps, yes?
Yes. I think
Terrific.
so.
Jean and Anne are actually the only two here with us who are subjects in the play.
That I know,
And,
yes.
Kieu Chinh and Bob are not subjects of the play, but they will be panelists for the discussion panels.
Cool. I'm going to start. I'll give a quick opening, and then I'll either Kelly, if you want to introduce them on air, you can, or right after you, if you just want to segue to someone else, and each person can introduce themselves, whichever is more comfortable for everyone. And then we're just going to chat. That's all this is. That's how I do it. This is indie theater, so let's all like be indie. Any questions, comments, problems, anything to go over? Okay.
I think if you're all comfortable with it, I'll let you introduce yourselves. How do you feel about that?
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Up to you.
This is
Up
the
to you.
actress, of course.
Okay.
Up to you.
You should come, you should go.
And give me 1 second. My roommate is doing a piano lesson. Give me 1 second.
Sure. That's the Zoom for me. It allows me to speak to people across the country, across the world. So I think it's marvelous. On the other level, it means I'm in my home, in front of this screen constantly, and every once in a while my cat decides to walk in. So if all of a sudden a little head pops up and looks at you, then you know that he's somewhere in there.
So does mine. Mine does the same thing.
Oh, perfect.
And mine isn't going to come in because she knows she has to go get her shots today, so she's avoiding us.
Oh, that's good. It's funny you say
But she's
that.
very cute.
I should do that. I should put the little kennel that I have to carry him into the vet, like right in front of my door. And I think he'll just, okay, I'm out of here. Thank you. Ingenuity. All right. And this is the play about Vietnam. I'm just getting my things in my head. Okay. On your mark. Get set. And this is Jay Michaels, and we're in the Passion Pit. This is a very different one and a very special one. When I first worked with Ashley Edelman and Infinite Variety Productions on their really groundbreaking, really amazing piece In Their Footsteps, and said I would love to interview the people involved, I thought I was interviewing the cast. And then I found out who I am actually honored in the presence right now. We are talking not to the cast, but to the subject of In Their Footsteps. With me are 4 Vietnam veterans and individuals who are going to be panelists for this, and 2 of these courageous women are actually the subject of the play. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, thank you. Welcome for being here. And thank you so much for what you have done in the world, quite frankly. It's really a pleasure to speak to you. I'm also introducing Kelly Tiefert. Kelly is the producer of this event. Kelly, please feel free. Tell us all about this event. Tell us about you. Tell us about these amazing guests. I'm intimidated, so I have to sit back for a moment now. Please feel free.
Thank you so much, Jay. This event is going to be a series of readings of the play and followed by panel discussions with different people, different perspectives on the Vietnam War. So with us today are 2 of the women who the play is about, who served in Vietnam, Jean Christie and Ann Kelsey. And also with us today is another Vietnam veteran, Bob Storanowit. We've worked with abductions before. before. He has written a book about Vietnam as well as serving there. And also with us is Kieu Chinh, who is a world famous actress from Vietnam. She has appeared in many TV shows and films, both about the Vietnam War and not about the Vietnam War, about many different subjects. And she also runs a not-for-profit company that operates in Vietnam and does humanitarian work there.
Ms. Chin, you're a veteran of another nature. I was so impressed with your resume. So many groundbreaking pieces and pieces that I found so amazing. You were in them. So you're a veteran of another nature, of which I'm equally intimidated.
Thank you. Who talking now?
Kelly, do you want to introduce, or shall we move on to everyone introducing themselves?
Let's let them introduce themselves. I would really love to give them a space to share their voices.
Terrific, Ms. Chin. As long as I put the onus on you, why don't we start with you?
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. Kelly, thank you for your briefly intro. Again, my name is Kieu Chinh. I was born in Hanoi, north of Vietnam. And then in 1954, when Geneva Agreement divided my country into two parts, North belonged to communist, South non-communist. I evacuated from North to South and became a refugee within my own country at the age of 16 by myself. So I grown up in the South, but I start my acting career in the center of Vietnam, which is Hue. What I'm trying to say is I'm all over in Vietnam, from north to center to south. And when 1975, when Vietnam War ended, I left Vietnam and I came into United States under the sponsorship of actress Tippi Hedren. If you do remember who she is in the movie The Birds, of Hitchcock's movie.
Of course, that's exactly what I was thinking. Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah,
That's a great bit of trivia. Wow.
Yeah, so I came here not under a refugee system, but under an individual sponsorship. So I came here with Tippi, and later it was Tippi and my other friend, actor William Holden, helped me to put me into Screen Actor Guild and found me an agent at William Morris Agency, so I am able to come back to work as an actor. And of course, it's not easy to work in Hollywood. You know, it's so much different from where I came from. But anyway, I was very lucky that one of my very first work in Hollywood, it was in the famous TV show MASH with Alan Alda. So I was very lucky that they wrote that story a little bit similar of my background. And that was the first time that Hawkeye, Alan Alda character, fell in love with a Korean woman. I played that character. The episode called In Love and War. And then after that, I appear in many other TV shows as well as movie. And the most recognizable is the Joy Luck Club.
I was about to say that, Jenny.
Yeah, and then a little bit long, and then on the occasion of 10 anniversaries of the wall in Washington, D.C., I was honored to have the privilege to give a speech at the wall in Washington, D.C. And it was very, very emotional. You know, almost million of people attending that event for the war, carving the 58,000 of Americans who lost their life in Vietnam War. So when I gave the speech, and after the speech, everybody would read a few names on the wall. So I read like Johnson, Smith, McNulty, and then the tear came out of my eyes. I said that I'm now an American citizen. My root is from Vietnam. I'm here reading the names of the Americans who fell on my fatherland. But deep down in my heart, I also thinking of the Trần, the Lê, the Nguyễn. Those Vietnamese last name, those Vietnamese, we have lost more than 2 million people in that war. And what I said is, I wish someday we can do something to honor the deaf, especially I mentioned the children. The innocent children have lost their life in that long war. And from that led me to meet the very famous American vet, Mr. Louis P. Puller, the veteran, the one who lost both legs and many fingers on both hands. The famous image on the wheelchair, that is Louis Puller. He is the son of the famous American admiral, Admiral Louis, nicknamed Chesty, Louis Chesty Puller. Now this Puller Jr., the son, my friend, who graduated from Harvard School. He went to West Point, and he come out from West Point as a lieutenant. He went to Vietnam War, and he lost both legs, you know, and returned on this country. And then the second person I met, it was Terry Anderson, the former journalist, had been kept hostage in Middle East for more than 6 years. So I met with Louis Puller and Terry Anderson. They was there at the event because we all there to give a speech and read the names on the wall. So when I mentioned, I hope someday I can do something to honor those victims, the children of the war. They joined me. So I am very deeply touched and honored that I have Louis Puller and Terry Anderson to join me to do something about that idea, do something to honor the children who lost their life in the war. So from there we found an organization, non-profit organization called the Vietnam Children's Fund. And make the long story short, the Vietnam Children's Fund was very honored and lucky to have so many veterans join helping us. The very first veteran joined and funding us to build schools for the children of Vietnam. So we decided that our organization doing nothing, instead of raising funds, build the wall, carving the name, we build schools. In those area has been most damaged by the war. In this poor area, they have no school. So we decided to build school. And the very first donor was a Vietnam vet, Mr. James V. Kimsey. He is a Vietnam vet, and he is the owner, the founder of AOL, America Online.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, my dear friend. And so
I have to tell you, you're hoping to do something good. You keep saying, I think you really are. I think you're succeeding wildly already.
thank you so
may
much.
May you keep doing this.
Yeah,
and
thank
may
you.
you have the stamina and the joy and the passion to keep doing this.
Yeah, thank you. I will end soon, and I want to listen to other panelists here. So with the donation from Mr. James V. Kimsey, we built the very first school right after when the embargo was lifted in Vietnam, 1995. Before 1995, Vietnam and America, there was embargo. And in 1995, it lifted. So it was for the first time, Terry Anderson, James Kimsey, and myself, we planned with Terry, with Louis Puller as well. But unfortunately, Louis killed himself just a few months before that.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he killed himself.
Oh.
Yeah. So only Terry Anderson, James Kimsey, and me, we went back. And the first school we built, we've been arguing where should we build the school. Some said the north need more, and some said, oh, we build in the south. That's where we've been fighting. And I said that may I have an idea? May I speak of my idea? I was born in the north, grown up in the south, and my country was divided into two parts, into 17 parallel way, the Đông Hà, Da Nang, the center of Vietnam. So may I suggest that we build the very first school at the 17 parallel? And everybody agreed. So there was the very first Vietnam Children's Fund school built at the 17 parallel, which is at Đông Hà, center of Vietnam. And with that school, Terry Anderson made a plaque to honor Louis Puller. So in that school, there is a plaque with Louis Puller image, name at the school. And that school now became a kind of location for many Vietnam vets. When they visit Vietnam, they go to that school.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Now I definitely want to meet you. You've piqued my interest even more than it was. I definitely want to meet with our Vietnam veterans that are here.
Yeah. May I just finish one more Vietnam vet. So far now, we have built 52 schools around the country, from north to center to south. And the person who has funding most of the school there is another Vietnam vet, Mr. Fred Smith. Fred Smith is the founder of FedEx. So
you're
Fred,
able to be veterans.
yes, yes sir. So FedEx have been helping us 4 schools. He's been giving us 4 schools. And the last school, it was in Quảng Ngãi, a center of Vietnam. So when I went back to inaugurate that school. So I would like to end up my introduction here by saying thanks to my sponsor, Attractive Hedron, that I have my life here in America now. And thanks to Louis Puller, Terry Anderson, and all the donors from James Kimsey to Fred Smith and many others helping us to have a Vietnam organization grow and build schools there. Thank you so much, and I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much. And I know every school has email, and it's AOL. And whenever packages have to be delivered, they get there fast, I'm sure, through FedEx. That's really amazing. That's a wonderful story. I had no idea of that history. And that's part of the reason I'm excited about this. We hear certain things. We we get what the news media throws at us about everything. And so to hear it right from those who were there is it's just frankly amazing. Gene, and I know you like to be called Sam, so I'd love to know why that's the case. Please tell us about yourself. You're one of the characters in this show. I think that's amazing.
I am. The infamous Sam, as they call me. Real name, professional name, Dr. Jeannie Christie. My students call me Doc Steve. But all the vets that I know from Vietnam and people that I know from Vietnam call me Sam. Nobody calls me Jeannie. And that came just by a fluke in Vietnam. Lost my name tag. I was in Da Nang. And a Marine sergeant, being a Marine sergeant, who, everything had to be straight and right and in order, came in one day when I was working in the center there. And I was out of uniform because I didn't have a name tag on. So he put a Sam name tag on me. And next morning, we did as crazy as it sounds, we did a TV spot at 7 o'clock in the morning. And we would say, hi, this is, whoever it is from the Red Cross Center on Freedom Hill, and today's program is going to be. So as I started to open my mouth and said, hi, and realized I had a Sam name tag on. So I said, I'm Sam. It stayed. And I always laughed. I said, if I got into trouble, nobody could ever figure out who I was. It was much safer than using my own name. But to this day, if somebody calls or somebody wants to get in touch with me, if they ring me up on the phone, they say, Sam, it's instant communication. Otherwise, you get the very professional, yes, what do you want? Who are you? And so forth and so on. But that's how I became the Sam. And I am retired now. Gosh, I don't have anything real interesting as such. But
I read your bio. Sorry, you have plenty of
you
that.
can have what you want. I'm an author, but not on Vietnam, but on Civil War women, which share a great deal of similarities, trust me. But I also wish to add to the school story because back in 85, I think it was, I had a chance to go back over. And one of the things they said, what would you like to do? They were going to allow me to take my daughter. And I said, I want to go back and see a woman who took care of me when I was sick in Vietnam. I want to honor her. She's deceased. I want to find the family. Never did, which broke my heart. But then my oldest daughter went to Vietnam many years later, and she had the picture in her hand. She couldn't find the woman. She couldn't find where I used to live. She couldn't find anything else. And we kind of said, well, that's the evolution of things. But very convoluted story. My older sister, who was in California, went to Vietnam a couple years ago. And the one thing she did is she went to a bunch of the schools and she took school supplies for the students. So even non-veterans, Americans going back over, are helping out with the school system over there. So that was
Wonderful.
quite nice and quite pleasant.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. And that's your influence on them for sure.
It is.
Wonderful.
Any other questions you have? I mean,
I'll have a ton. In a moment. First, I'd love to meet Ms. Kelsey. And Kelsey, tell us about you.
Yes, well, I'm Ann Kelsey, and I was a librarian. I was recruited out of the UCLA Library School in the spring of 1969 by the Special Services, Army Special Services recruiters. Special Services was the Morale and Recreation arm of the Army, now called MWR. Morale, Welfare, Recreation. So Army Libraries had been a worldwide program since World War II, with anybody who's been in the military will know there was always a library on a base. But I found out that they were recruiting for librarians for Vietnam. So I signed right up. Wow. Because I was at UCLA in 1968-69. The anti-war movement was in full force. I came from a town near a very big Air Force base. Most of my friends were military brats. Most of the guys I dated in college were military. So having all of that anti-war activism directed against soldiers really upset me. So when I found out I could go to Vietnam and manage libraries for the soldiers, signed right up. And 2 months after I graduated with my master's degree, I was on a plane from Travis Air Force Base to Vietnam, where I stayed like the guys did for a year. And I came home and I moved to New York City. I grew up in Southern California. I moved to New York and I've been in the tri-state area ever since. And I worked in libraries until I retired in 2009. So almost 50 years in library land.
Wow.
Wow.
And I also have been back to Vietnam. I started going back in the early 90s with a small NGO that was taking medical supplies to clinics and hospitals. And we started before the embargo was lifted. So
Wonderful.
in 92. And I've been back many times. The last time was 2018.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. May I add to Kelsey talk? The Vietnam Children Fund has been joined by many other Vietnam vet women as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
I'm familiar with it from the very early days when it was
Right,
the Vietnam
right.
Reconciliation
Yeah.
Fund.
Now, the Vietnam Children Fund other members, Tony Acamando. Tony Acamando is in Philadelphia. Now, he also have teamed up many Vietnam vet, men and women, raising fund, and he was able to build, I think it was 3 schools in Da Nang. And Tony and I, we went back to Da Nang together, and we visit our first school. And also I admire your ladies that go away from home, miles away from home, and doing the duty. In my career, I'm lucky that I was able to join in many episodes in the TV show
China Beach.
China.
China Beach.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
No, it shows how old I am. I can't think of the name. Yeah, I was in China Beach, many episodes. Also working behind the camera, and in many other movies. If they need a technical advisor about Vietnam War, Vietnam culture, Vietnam, the look or whatever. So therefore, I really admire those the women.
And I certainly admire your brand and courage. You didn't decide to go protest or sign a petition or donate money or whatever. You signed up. It's just such a level of bravery.
Believe me, the last thing I thought about was being brave. That did not even enter my mind.
I would concur.
Nor did the possibility of getting shot at or anything else. I didn't even think about that. That's what happens when you're 21 years old.
That's a good thing to not think about, yes. Bob, please, we've introduced the ladies here. Please tell us about you. You're a distinguished panelist and author for this event. Tell us about you.
Okay, I'm Bob Stranowitz, and first of all, let me say welcome home to our two other Vietnam veterans on this Zoom. I grew up in a small neighborhood in Philadelphia, and never thought about joining the Army until my best friend was killed in Vietnam. After that, about 16 of us, a few months later, enlisted in Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, and I took my training at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Got orders for Vietnam, something my recruiter told me would never happen because of my training. I'm still looking for him. But probably the best experience of my life. I went to Vietnam, and I was assigned to the 101st Airborne, another shock, because I thought that I would be sitting in an air-conditioned office in Saigon somewhere since I was in communications security. Again, that was a shock, but it turned out to be something that I treasure because one day I was delivering laundry to an orphanage in Vietnam, and I got to meet the nuns and two boys who I befriended. It was a freak accident that I did this because somebody else was supposed to go that day, but I was asked to go, and many trips later, I got very friendly with the two boys. I would, excuse me, I just lost myself here. We would go and have toys and candy and stuff sent from home. And each visit we would take something to the orphanage. Little did I know that once I left Vietnam, I forgot about everything for about 22 years when I started writing my book. And the orphanage came back to my memory. I was wondering if it was still there. I did lots of research on it. Finally, in 2008, I found that it was still there. I sent a picture of the church that was in the courtyard to the orphanage, and a picture of two boys. And here it was found that this was the orphanage that is still there. So I went back in 2008 with my daughter. I got to meet those two guys as grown men. It was an experience that you can't make up. Luckily, I went with my younger daughter, who fell in love with every orphan she met there and wanted to bring them home. She called it an Angelina Jolie moment. So there have been other events that are other things that have happened since that time. 4 years ago, I was sitting around and I got a message on my phone of a woman in Brooklyn who wanted to know if I was associated with the orphanage. Here, she was born there in 1969, the same time I was there. We had a reunion that was broadcast on CBS 4 years ago, and I believe she's on a panel on Tuesday, right, Kelly?
Yes, yeah, Laura. She's going to be on our panel on Tuesday with Kieu Chinh.
But the orphanage has meant a lot to me. I still collect donations every year since 2008 from friends and family, and as of last year, I've sent over $18,000 to the orphanage that they use for food for the kids, equipment like stoves and laundry items. So it's meant a lot to me. I may have left Vietnam, but Vietnam never left me. And when I went back, I was able to go to Hanoi, which is something that never would have happened back in 1970. And I got to visit the Hanoi Hilton, where John McCain was held for 7-8 years. And in my book, I talk a lot about the orphanage. And also in the play that is, I'm sorry, I'm losing the reader. In the play that, Beyond the Etchings, that Kelly and Ashley have helped me with, we also mentioned a little bit about the orphanage. So it means a lot to me, and it's still in my heart.
May I have the name of your book? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm hearing something from the three of you that's fascinating me. I'm naive, pardon my naivete, because of the media and because of filmmaking of that time period. Vietnam is, of all the wars, the most shocking in terms of visuals. When you think about it, it's the most devastating. Yet I'm hearing from the three of you. I'm hearing, and Bob, that was the perfect line. You left Vietnam, but Vietnam never left you. But I'm hearing of these seminal moments, these epiphanies that you've had there. How was it for the three of you being there? I just see what films show us, what newsreels show us. How was it? How was it to be in Vietnam?
Let me just say that if the media would have covered these humanitarian efforts that we did while we were there, I think they would have been treated a lot differently when we came home. I came home and I went back to my own neighborhood, and a friend of mine who was soon to be a close friend walked up to me and said, "Welcome home, baby killer."
I heard those stories. Yes, that's.
Okay. I write about it in my book. I don't mention his name. I use fictitious names in my book, but that hurt. I've never spoken to him again.
You didn't punch him in the face, so okay, you did a good deed there.
Well, I was in uniform, so.
Oh, sorry. Ladies, how was it for you there? Like I said, I'm hearing these epiphanies. What was it like for you there?
Go ahead, Jay.
I always say it was my $1 million education. I learned a great deal about myself. I learned a great deal about the war. I learned a great deal about other people. And those were lessons that you never take away from me. They're very, very deeply entrenched. And the good and the bad. The good and the bad. And, those lessons of life in one short year taught, they were so deep and so ingrained that you can't get rid of that depth. And like Bob, I was doing something when I came home. I was doing some talking at different gatherings, and I had women come up to me and say, "We know what you did." It's like, okay, there's no discussion. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to argue because I'm not going to win this argument. And you just learn to take it, smile graciously, turn away, walk away. Like Bob being in uniform. I wasn't in uniform, but I knew that was the barrier. And I will never, ever forget those women coming up to me after the war when I came home. And it's just like, for 20 years, I didn't talk about it.
Also,
Yes.
also, I had Vietnam veteran on my resume for a long time. I went for an interview at RCA in New Jersey, and one of the questions that the interviewer asked me was, "How much drugs did I do in Vietnam?" Just assuming, that we were all druggies. That was another aspect of our life there. So
It's incredible. I'm hearing you talk about saving orphanages. I'm hearing all of you talk about these things, and yet that's what they care about. How much drugs did you do there?
Well, that was what it was like at that time. Anybody who had gone to Vietnam, whether they were drafted, whether they enlisted, whether they were volunteers, were anathema. You know, the feeling against the war in this country was so strong, but it was centered on the people who were in it rather than the bad policies that made the war wrong. So when I came back, I solved some of my problems by simply leaving where I grew up and moving to the other side of the country. I came back for 3 weeks to Southern California, and then I moved to New York City. So nobody knew me there, and I got a job as a children's librarian in a public library on Long Island, and absolutely nobody even remotely conceived of somebody doing story hours and Itsy Bitsy Spider with 3-year-olds having just spent a year in Vietnam. So, like Jean, I didn't talk about it for 20 years. I had on my resume that I had worked for the Army, but not where.
They couldn't imagine that nice lady going, shh.
Never should. That is a stereotype. Nobody in libraries goes shh. If they do, they're not a good librarian. But yeah, if you wanted to exist, you just shut your mouth and lived your life and just stayed under the radar for years.
Lived your life, stayed under the radar. Okay. Did you fear for your lives there? What was it like
Well,
every day? Is it
well,
like
I
in
should
the movies?
have.
There you go. Is it like in the movies? Could any second be your last second? Was it as we have seen?
Well, I was in the northern part of South Vietnam. I've seen Dong Ha, I've seen Quang Tri, Da Nang, and I was stationed near Hue, which is probably the most beautiful city in Vietnam. But being in the 101st, no matter what your MOS was, your occupational specialty, you were first a soldier, because that part of Vietnam was desolate and probably one of the most dangerous parts. So yes, you fear for your life.
There were people, women were killed there. Women who were working in different capacities were killed there. I think, like Ann said before, we were 21, 22, naive as can be. The world was our oyster, and, something was going to protect us. But in reality, there was a lot of funny stuff going on. I knew a couple nurses that got killed, and they were friends. And then we had a couple of the donut dollies get killed. So, and we had break-ins in the hooches, and problems like that. So, but it was a war zone. Everybody else had a different situation, and things were much more dangerous for them than they were for us. We felt almost, we weren't vulnerable at all. We were, the world was going to protect us.
That's right. Like all people that age, you're invincible.
Yes.
That's why old men send young ones to war.
Exactly.
It's very funny, but that was very painful. Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. When you're 21, you're invisible.
Yeah.
You've all said the same thing again. You've all said, okay, I kept my mouth shut for 20 years. Okay, now you're not keeping your mouth shut. You've written books. You're the subject of a play. I ask again to all, how does that make you? How did it feel after 20 years of saying I'm not going to say anything because I can't, knowing you can? That's the first thing. And now, to this moment, how did it feel when you finally could open up about it?
Go for it, Ann.
Well, what really got me to start talking first was that trip back to Vietnam in 1992. Because it was a large group of people. It was mostly educators, and we couldn't get you couldn't get a visa there in the United States then because there were no diplomatic relations. So we all had to go to Thailand and wait to get a Vietnamese visa in Bangkok. So this whole big group, there was maybe 40 people, was sitting around this huge conference table at the university in Bangkok. And they went around the table, everybody introducing themselves. Well, almost everyone was either a Vietnam vet or the relative of a Vietnam vet. So we were all on this plane together. We all flew into Hanoi for the first time, since the war, being back in Vietnam and going into Hanoi. We really bonded. I'm still close with people from that trip. And we talked. I mean, it was a 3-week trip, and we just talked and talked and talked and talked. And for many of us, the first time since we left. So after we came back, that's when I got connected with the Vietnam Women's Memorial Project. And I wanted to find people from special services, who had been in Vietnam. And they had a sister search program where you could write a letter and then they would search their database and send your name out to anybody from special services. So I did that. And first person I heard from was Kathleen Cordova. Jean knows her, who unfortunately passed away last year. But she was a coordinator in California for the Vietnam Women's Memorial Project. She got me hooked up with them. And then I started to meet not just women from special services, but Red Cross, USO, military women, and we all started talking. So that time period in 1992, 1993, when the memorial was dedicated, was just when I think so many of us just started to blossom out and really talk and proud and to tell other people what we had done.
It was like a watershed moment. You realized you weren't alone.
Yeah, proud of what we did. I mean, the women that went are very proud of what they did.
Yep.
And so it's, it was time. It was time. We had grown up and it was time to let people know. So we just started talking.
And how'd you feel, Sam, when you started talking?
Let's put it this way. It was a very rocky and rough start. I hit the wall big time. And, spent a lot of time down in Washington. We were denied access in the first parade in Washington. And told that we couldn't march. We had to march with our states. And we said, we don't belong with the states. We belong with the organization that sent us there. And when we walked past, there were only six or seven of us, walked past a reviewing stand. It was dead silence. And we turned and gave them the biggest, pardon the expression, shit-eating grin we could possibly get. And we said, we're here, and we're not going to be put down anymore. So that was kind of the shaky start that we all had. And, you don't lead with it all the time, but if somebody asks, we're more than happy to talk about it. We're comfortable talking about it.
Right. It's so funny you had to fight a war just to tell people you fought a war.
Yeah.
Bob, how about you? You are still connected. You're raising funds. You're still there, if you will, in mind and heart. How did it feel when you finally started talking about all this?
It all started with my book. I wrote one paragraph, and I stopped and I showed it to a friend, and she said to me, "You got to finish this." So 304 pages later, I finished it. I was also contacted by a teacher in North Carolina to be an advisor on a play he was writing about Vietnam, which since that time has been taken over by IVP, and we've done Beyond the Etching several times in the last few years. Things like that got me back into talking about Vietnam. For the last 10, 12 years on Veterans Day, I've been going to schools and talking to the kids. I mean, 5th and 6th graders have so many questions about all veterans. So it goes on.
I'm seeing a little nod. I saw a little nod from everyone when you said kids have questions. You all went,
Yeah.
Does that make you feel good? Is that something that's is that a catharsis to you that there are people who want to know now? It's not about insults. It's not about hiding. They want to know what actually happened. Is that a catharsis for you at this point?
Well, for me, my daughter was in high school. My older daughter was in high school in 1992. And I looked at her history book, and there was one page on Vietnam. Sorry about that. My phone.
That's all right.
There was one page about Vietnam. Since that time, it's all over. I mean, the children want to know what you did there. How was the food? Where did you sleep? Were you afraid? What did your family think? Questions like that.
Last year, my youngest grandson up in Hingham, Massachusetts, for Veterans Day, said, Gammy, we want you there. Well, my husband's also a vet, so the two of us went. And we sat up on the podium with a lot of other veterans from different wars, and they introduced us. We went down the line, and they got to me. I explained what I was, and there was a giggle in the crowd because you say, well, I was a Jonah Dummy type thing. And they'll go, and then you say, what I did was psychological health and welfare. We went out to the field to see the guys, and we run recreation centers as well, but our job was to talk to the men. And afterwards, one of the vets on the panel, after we broke up, came up, walked up to me, and he gave me the biggest hug. And he said, thank you for being there. And it just melted my heart. It was a very special moment. But if my grandson had not said, you need to be there too, Gabby, I would just let my husband do it. And yet, the story is out, So.
Well, good for you. I have okay. We're doing a play, so let's talk the theater for a moment, and I include all of you in this. Kelly, even you, because this is a very interesting thing to hear all parts of this. I digress very quickly. I don't know how many of you've watched The Juice on I think it's HBO, and it was a show about the corrupt '80s and what New York on Times Square, and
It was awful.
and it was awful, but I smiled a little bit because I remember Times Square in the '80s.
So do I. That's why it was awful.
But there were little moments where I would see something and I would just go, I was there. Now, for me, it's there. I was walking down the street to some off-Broadway theater or something when I was working, but so I put that in the air when I say this. You have been rehearsing, and I say this for all of you. You have been listening to actors say your words. You have been sitting there. Someone would turn to you and say, "How was that?" Those of you who are on the panel, you are being asked about this time period. How does it feel to see it on the stage? It's now becoming. I always think Shakespeare said the actors are the abstract and brief chronicle of the time. So the moment something becomes a play, it is there forever. How does it feel to know you're there forever? That there you are. That the theater is commemorating you.
I have to say it is amazing that Jay and Kelly, that you put this play together. It's late but better than never. Vietnam War was the longest war in America history. It was on the headline of media for more than 15 years. Many children of more than 1 million soldiers in Vietnam War have the right to know about what their grandfather, grandmother, their parent and their husband and their sons doing there. And I'm glad that today I listen to you talk about your experiences, what you've been doing there, how do you feel about it. I'm not a soldier, but most of my friends are soldiers. And as an actor, I had the opportunity to become a technical advisor in many movies and TV shows, such as Hamburger Hill. And then recently, a friend of mine, Mr. He wrote the book,
Richard Watkin.
yeah,
Richard Watkin, Ride of Thunder.
Ride the Thunder. I don't know if any of you have seen Ride the Thunder by Robert Watkins. By Watkins. He wrote a almost 600-page book about Vietnam. And I think it was the very first book written about the honor of the soldiers fighting there and about the honor of the South Vietnam soldiers. Because of many books and many movies have written about that war, but it looked like they only see the American side and the North Vietnam side, but not about their comrade fighting side by side with them, which is the South Vietnam. So
That's the ironic thing. It's interesting you say that because we always look at the war.
yeah,
You know, but what about the warriors? What about what they think? Ladies, you're seeing yourself up on stage.
voila.
What's that like?
Yes. So now that book, Ride the Thunder, have turned to a movie, and I am very honored that my friend Alan Ford and myself, we happen to be co-producer of that of that film, and directed by Fred Coster, and Richard was such an author to write about that war and to honor the soldiers who
And
were
then
there.
we'll make a movie of this. Sam and Ann, how does it feel? You're up there. You're
Yes,
stars.
yes.
How does it feel?
Yes.
Our history will not go away. It's an honor to see it in production, and it's nice to know that we're still young and slender and skinny.
Yeah, right. I'm just amazed at how Ashley and Caroline and Kelly and everyone who took those oral histories and made a script that retains our words, retains the flavor of what we were saying in the interviews, but makes it interesting, makes it a drama, makes it flow. I do a lot of oral history interviews, but I'm on the interviewer side, and I just think I'm just in awe of their ability to do that. And when I watch the play, and I've seen it a lot because I kind of a groupie, when they go someplace to put it on, I try to follow along. I get to see lots of new places that way too. I don't think of myself that being me. I mean, I'm watching me as a character. Yeah, I don't really think of it being me on the stage. It's me, the character on stage, and it's a great experience.
That's funny you say that. That was another lifetime ago. So yeah, you're being a previous lifetime, I guess.
It's also fun to watch the audience reaction when your character comes on. And having, watched a couple of the productions, it's very interesting because we sit there screaming, nobody knows who we are when this is all going on. And, you kind of look around and watch their reactions to our character. So it's very interesting in that regard.
And then when at the end of the play, when they say these are the real people,
That's what I was
the shock and surprise on the faces of the audience is just priceless.
That's wonderful.
Let me just add to that.
Yes, please.
I'm not involved in this play, but I want to say it. The play that Kelly and Ashley did of mine, or with ours now, to take my words and hear them performed on stage, it was very emotional. Kelly will tell you that she saw me wipe my eyes a few times. She took two characters from my book and put them into the